Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this: the sound of a soft breeze through ancient trees, the gentle rhythm of a flowing river, the heartbeat of the earth beneath your feet. Now, imagine that same heartbeat within yourself. Buddhism tells us that this is not just imagination, but truth. And yet, despite this profound truth, many of us feel a heavy loneliness inside. How can both exist together? If everything is connected, why do we so often feel alone? To explore this mystery, let us walk through the history, philosophy, and living heart of Buddhism over 2,500 years ago. In a quiet corner of northern India, a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama left behind his palace of luxury. He was deeply troubled not by a lack of comfort, but by the suffering he witnessed: old age, sickness, and death. He realized that no wealth, no status, and no earthly power could shield anyone from these realities. His quest was not for more riches, but for truth, a way to understand the nature of existence itself. After years of meditation, wandering, and deep reflection under the Bodhi tree, he awakened. In that moment, Siddhartha became the Buddha, enlightened one. What he discovered was not a doctrine to be blindly followed, but a path that any human being could walk. He revealed that all suffering has a cause, that it can end, and that there is a way to live free. The Buddha's message spread across kingdoms and centuries, carried not by swords, but by compassion, wisdom, and the quiet power of truth. When we look at Buddhist philosophy, we see a profound understanding of life. At its core lies the idea of dependent origination, the recognition that nothing exists by itself, and everything arises in connection with something else. A flower cannot bloom without soil, water, and sunlight. A human cannot exist without parents, ancestors, teachers, and countless others who shaped their path. Even the air we breathe and the food we eat are gifts from countless beings. This interconnection is so deep that Buddhism teaches us there is no truly separate self. What we call me is actually a flowing river of causes, conditions, and relationships. And yet, even with this truth, our hearts ache with loneliness. We forget our interconnectedness when our minds become caught in craving, fear, and isolation. This is why Buddhism emphasizes mindfulness, being present, truly present, to see the web of life around us and within us. In the modern world, Buddhists practice this truth in many ways. Monks and nuns gather in temples, rising before dawn, to chant, meditate, and offer blessings for all beings. Lay people practice generosity, offering food, kindness, and support, seeing that every act ripples outward into the whole. Rituals, like lighting incense or chanting sutras, are not empty. Gestures, they are reminders that each life is part of something greater. Meditation, whether in stillness or in walking, trains the heart to let go of illusion and feel directly the living pulse of connection. A Buddhist lifestyle today is not bound by tradition alone, is alive, breathing, and adaptable to our world. Even in the busiest city, someone can close their eyes, take a single mindful breath, and step into the same silence that the Buddha himself entered centuries ago. The principles of Buddhism: compassion, loving kindness, and wisdom. Keys to healing the loneliness of the human heart. Compassion teaches us that when we ease the suffering of another, we also ease the suffering within ourselves. Loving kindness teaches us to extend goodwill not only to those we love, but even to strangers, even to those we fear, even to ourselves. When we falter, wisdom reveals that the walls we build around I and you are illusions. Loneliness, then, is not the absence of people, it's the absence of recognition. Recognition that we are never separate, not from each other, not from the earth, not from the great mystery of life. In today's world of endless screens, hurried lives, and silent struggles, Buddhism offers a gentle but powerful reminder. You are not alone. Each message you send, each smile you offer, each breath you take is tied to countless others. Science now echoes what the Buddha taught long ago, that life is an intricate web of interdependence. In this light, Buddhism is not an old religion. Locked in temples, it is a living wisdom, guiding us to walk with open eyes, open hearts, and open hands. To feel the loneliness dissolve into belonging, not because we force it, but because it is the truth of our existence. The more we live with compassion, the more we practice kindness, the more the illusion of separation fades. So, the question, if all beings are connected, why do we feel alone, is answered not with theory, but with practice. We feel alone because we forget the truth of our interconnection. We remember it when we breathe mindfully, when we give without expecting, when we love without fear. In these moments, the loneliness dissolves, and we awaken to the radiant truth that we have never truly been alone. Not for a single moment. Life itself walks with us in every heartbeat, in every breath, in every being that shares this existence. And when we remember this, the ache of loneliness becomes the music of belonging, the song of all life, sung together as one. When we reflect on the Buddha's journey, we begin to see that his life itself was the answer to our loneliness. Siddhartha Gautama had every comfort imaginable: family, wealth, servants, music, and gardens overflowing with beauty. And yet, even in that abundance, he felt a great emptiness. Surrounded by people, yet he still felt isolated from the deeper truth of life. Isn't that what so many of us experience today? We might have hundreds of friends online, a busy workplace, a family at home, and still inside, there can be an aching silence that no noise can fill. The Buddha recognized that loneliness does not come from being alone. It comes from not understanding the nature of our own mind and our connection to all beings. When he walked away from the palace, he wasn't abandoning people. He was searching for a way to truly be with them, to understand suffering, to dissolve the illusion of separation. After years of searching, he awakened under the Bodhi tree, and the light he discovered was not just for himself, but for every living being. That awakening revealed a profound truth, that all life is woven together, and that no one is ever truly separate. Even the suffering of loneliness was part of that great web. The philosophy of Buddhism shines here. The teaching of dependent origination shows us that every single thing arises because of countless conditions. Imagine a tree. It is not just a tree, it's the soil, the rain, the sunlight, the seed, the wind that carried it, the farmer who cared for the land. When you look deeply at that tree, you see the whole universe inside it. The same is true for us. None of us exists on our own. Every smile you give, every word you speak, every act of kindness or cruelty ripples through this web of life. And yet, we forget. We look at ourselves in the mirror and think, I am alone. But Buddhism gently reminds us, no. You are the river. You are the soil. You are your mother's breath, your father's hands, your ancestors' prayers, your teachers' voices, the laughter of friends, even the kindness of strangers who crossed your path only once. You carry them all inside you. Still, why does loneliness feel so heavy? It is because the mind clings. We cling to the idea of a separate self, an identity that must stand apart from others. We cling to expectations of who should be with us, how they should love us, and what belonging should look like. And when those expectations are not met, a gap appears, a hollow space where we imagine ourselves as incomplete. Buddhism calls this craving and attachment. The Buddha taught that suffering, including loneliness, comes from this grasping. But he also taught that it can end. How do we begin to end it? By turning inward with mindfulness. By sitting quietly and breathing. We can watch the stories of loneliness pass by like clouds in the sky. We learn that we are not our loneliness. We are the sky itself, vast and open, capable of holding both joy and sorrow. With compassion, we turn to ourselves and say, it's okay. This feeling of emptiness is not who I am. It is just a passing wave. And then, with loving kindness, we extend that same gentle presence to others. We recognize that just as we feel alone, so too does the person sitting across the cafe, the neighbor next door, the stranger on the bus. When we see this, loneliness transforms into empathy. Suddenly, the walls of isolation begin to crack, and the light of connection enters. Even in Buddhist rituals, this truth is practiced. When monks chant, they don't chant only for themselves. They chant for the entire world. When incense is lit, it is an offering for all beings. These acts are small reminders that we are never practicing alone. Every mindful breath joins the countless breaths of others, past and present, walking the same path toward peace. And so, loneliness is not proof that we are separate. It is an invitation to remember our connection. When the heart feels empty, it is calling us to awaken, to step back into the truth that life itself is holding us, always. Imagine for a moment sitting in silence beneath a vast night sky. The stars glimmer above you, countless and timeless. You may feel small, perhaps even alone, but then a deeper realization stirs. Each star is connected by the same universe that holds you. This is how the Buddha taught us to see life, not as isolated fragments, but as shining points within one endless sky of existence. In daily Buddhist life, this truth is not kept as a distant philosophy, is lived moment by moment. Monks and nuns rise before the world awakens. Their mornings begin with meditation, chanting verses that carry blessings across mountains, rivers, and oceans, reaching beings they will never meet. Lay practitioners offer food and support to the Sangha, not because, but because generosity is a bridge between hearts. Even a simple gesture, like bowing before a statue of the Buddha, is not worship in the sense of separation. It is an act of humility, a reminder that we are part of something vast and shared. But what about those of us who live far from temples, who work long hours, who feel cut off from community? Buddhism says the temple is also within you. Each act of mindfulness transforms ordinary life into sacred practice. Washing your hands can become a meditation on water and gratitude. Eating a meal can become a recognition of the countless lives plants, animals, farmers, earth that made this food possible. When you pause in the rush of daily life to breathe mindfully, you touch the same stillness that monks touch at dawn. In this way, we dissolve the illusion of being alone and return to belonging. Still, Our modern world pushes us toward separation. Screens draw us into comparisons, reminding us of what we lack instead of what we share. Our busy schedules leave little room for silence or reflection. It is easy to forget that our struggles are not unique to us, but shared by millions of others. Loneliness whispers, "You are different. You are cut off." Buddhism whispers back, "No, you are one with all beings." The practice is simply to listen to the right voice. One of the most beautiful teachings here is metta-loving kindness meditation. In this practice, we begin by silently wishing ourselves peace. May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I live with ease. Then, we extend those wishes outward to someone we love. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you live with ease. Then, even further, to a neutral person, to someone we struggle with, and, finally, to all beings without exception. In doing this, the hard walls of loneliness soften. We begin to see that the heart can embrace the whole world, and the whole world can live inside the heart. Loneliness begins to shift when we recognize it not as an enemy, but as a teacher. It asks us to look deeper, to see beyond appearances. The Buddha himself often sat alone, not to escape others, but to discover that in silence, he was never alone. Every tree, every bird, every breath of wind was a companion. When we sit quietly, we can discover the same truth. The sound of the wind becomes a friend. The warmth of the sun becomes a companion. Even the beating of our own heart becomes a reminder that life is walking with us. The modern Buddhist practitioner understands this. Connection is not about the number of people around us, but the depth of presence we bring to each moment. A single act of genuine kindness can connect us more deeply than 100 shallow conversations. A single mindful breath can bring us closer to life than a crowded room ever could. And so, Buddhism does not promise that loneliness will vanish forever. Instead, it shows us how to transform it, how to hold it gently, breathe with it, and let it guide us back to connection. In this way, loneliness becomes not a curse, but a doorway. A doorway into compassion, into wisdom, into remembering that beneath the surface, we are already one. There is a quiet power that arises when we turn to the heart of Buddhist principles, compassion, patience, and inner balance. These are not just ideas to study. They are living forces that heal the loneliness and confusion we feel inside. Compassion, or karu, is the ability to feel the suffering of others as if it were our own, and to respond with kindness. When we are trapped in loneliness, our focus narrows. We become wrapped in our own pain, believing no one else could understand. But when we practice compassion, we begin to see that our suffering is not separate. Every person you pass on the street has known loss, fear, or longing. Every heart carries its own invisible burdens. Compassion allows us to reach beyond ourselves and say, I see you. Your pain is also my pain. And in that recognition, our loneliness softens. Because we no longer feel like a single isolated drop, we feel like part of the great ocean of humanity. Patience, or K. Jainti, teaches us that healing takes time. Loneliness does not vanish overnight. There may be days when the silence feels overwhelming, when the ache of disconnection seems endless. But Buddhism reminds us that everything is impermanent. Just as night becomes morning, just as storms become clear skies, so too does loneliness shift and change. Patience helps us sit with our emotions without judgment, without rushing to escape. It is like holding a small child who is crying. You don't demand the tears to stop instantly, though. You hold them gently until the storm passes. In the same way, patience with ourselves allows us to embrace our loneliness without despair, knowing that it too will pass. And then there is balance, or ippakot. Balance does not mean indifference. It means resting in the middle, not swinging wildly between clinging and rejection. When we are lonely, we often crave attention, desperately seeking someone to fill the emptiness. Or we may fall into despair, pushing the world away. Balance teaches us another way. It reminds us that true peace is not found in chasing or escaping, but in resting in the present moment. When the mind is balanced, we can sit alone without fear. We can love without attachment, and we can endure solitude without despair. Balance is the gentle ground on which compassion and patience stand. These three, compassion, patience, and balance, are not abstract virtues. They are practical tools. When you feel lonely, you can practice compassion by sending kind wishes to others, remembering that you are not the only one who suffers. You can practice patience by breathing deeply, telling yourself, this feeling will not last forever. I will sit with it. You can practice balance by observing your emotions without being swept away, like watching waves rise and fall on the surface of the sea. When lived in this way, these principles transform loneliness into connection, emptiness into openness, and slowly you begin to see what the Buddha saw, that you are not alone. You are part of an infinite network of life, supported by the earth, the sky, the countless beings around you, both seen and unseen. Think of a candle flame. When it lights another candle, it does not lose its own light. Instead, both flames shine together, doubling the brightness. This is how compassion, patience, and balance work within us. They remind us that by sharing our light, we do not lose it, grows. And in that light, the darkness of loneliness is gently dissolved. And so, we return to the question that guided us from the beginning. If all beings are connected, why do we feel alone? The Buddha's timeless wisdom tells us that our loneliness is not proof of separation, but a veil of illusion. It is the mind, clouded by craving, fear, and misunderstanding, that convinces us we are cut off. But in truth, life is connection itself. Every breath we take is the gift of trees. Every step we walk is carried by the earth. Every heartbeat within us is in rhythm with the great heartbeat of existence. We have never been truly alone, not for a single moment. In today's modern world, this wisdom is more urgent than ever. Surrounded by technology, social media, and endless distractions, many of us feel more isolated than ever before. We may sit in crowded rooms, yet feel unseen, unheard, unknown. But Buddhism calls us back to what is real: compassion, mindfulness, presence. It reminds us that belonging is not about numbers, followers, or constant company. It is about recognizing the deep interconnection of all life. Look at how Buddhism has quietly shaped our world. Practices like mindfulness are now taught in schools, hospitals, and workplaces, offering peace in the midst of stress. Compassion inspires countless acts of kindness across cultures, bridging divides between strangers. The principles of impermanence and balance guide us through grief, change, and uncertainty, teaching us to hold life lightly, yet lovingly, even in a society that often feels fractured. These ancient teachings continue to heal, to soften, to unite. The relevance of Buddhism today is not confined to temples or rituals. It is alive in the way we breathe, the way we speak, the way we treat one another. It is alive every time someone pauses in the rush of life to listen, to comfort, to simply be present. The same truth that awakened the Buddha centuries ago can awaken in each of us here and now. So when you feel the ache of loneliness, remember, it is not a sign of emptiness, but a reminder to awaken, to breathe, to see, to feel the invisible threads that bind you to every being, to know that your laughter ripples outward, your kindness shapes lives, your presence matters more than you realize. You are part of a vast, luminous web that stretches across time and space. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: the love, compassion, and wisdom you seek outside have always been within you. The Buddha said, "Look within. You are the light." That light is the bridge between you and the whole universe.